morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. First off, I just want to remind you that today is your last day to tweet me your one-sentence review for why you would like a free copy of The Gunman. That's the Sean Penn, Liam Neeson-style movie that came out a few months ago, and it's courtesy of our friends at Dolby Atmos. They mix the sound for the film, and they've also done the mix for the Blu-ray release. Now, I have 3 copies again to give away, and the way that you enter is that you tweet me at Grace Randolph one sentence as to why you would like to watch The Gunman. And then you also have to include the hashtag Dolby Atmos to be eligible. Alright, so let's get to today's episode, which I think will make some of you, particularly not just, I guess, I wouldn't just qualify it as DC Warner Brothers fans, because I'm a DC Warner Brothers fan, but those of you who really want to stick it to Disney, right? I think you're going to be very happy with today's episode. There are a few very, very strong DC fans who I respect. I respect that kind of fandom, who have asked me why I focus on Disney. And the theory is that Disney doesn't actually dominate the headlines, which I don't agree with, although I do think they're starting to be challenged. I think the rest of the studios are starting to get the hang of this brave new world that Hollywood has entered. But I think Disney is a huge juggernaut. If you need any more evidence, they're able to hold their own convention in August called the D23 Expo. That's how strong they are. But the theory that someone floated to me was that I just picked Disney stories, which, you know, again, I respect the kind of fandom that drives such an accusation, even if it's baseless. But anyway, I'm very happy to say that I have an entirely Warner Brothers-centric episode planned for today. All right, and also a viewer question, which doesn't have anything to do with Warner Brothers, but it's good advice, I think, for anyone, hopefully. And I really like the question, and I think you will too. But anyway, and this is a question I particularly would like if other people chime in on. But let's do our stories first. Now, the first is a story that I think, first of all these big stories coming out from Suicide Squad over the last few days all come from Adam Beach. So I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Beach was just like pulling our leg, right? Being like, you know, kind of doing an Andy Kaufman kind of routine where he's like, I'm just going to make up stuff about Suicide Squad that sounds crazy and build the mythology of the film, right? So what's going on? Well, last week there was the story that Jared Leto is so in character as the Joker that he is sending weird gifts to his co-stars, right? And everyone's like, ooh, like how weird? Okay, like, for instance, apparently he sent Margot Robbie a love letter, and then it was accompanied by a black box that had a live rat in it, right? And he's like, oh, I'm the Joker, all right? I'm starting to sow the seeds of our on-screen chemistry and relationship. You know, the kind of, actor's method work that goes on behind the camera and preparing for the role. And then Adam Beach said that Jared Leto felt bad he wasn't there when everybody first came to set because he had other obligations, you know, his tour, but he wanted to assure everyone that he was working just as hard as they are, and so he sent them that letter and a quote-unquote dead hog, which I guess is a dead pig. And I'd be like, I think PETA, you know, I think that the fact that PETA hasn't said anything is kind of like a good sign that this is made up. Also, by the way, I take particular offense at killing pigs because I don't know if you've seen, well, all animals are pretty smart. I think if you really pay attention to animals, they're really smart. But pigs, for instance, there's like a pig in Germany, I think a couple of months ago, that was able to orchestrate its own escape from a facility like Mission Impossible style, and also hopped on the back of a truck to get away. So I'm like, if anything's that smart, I feel kind of bad eating it. And Jared Leto didn't even eat it, he used it as a prop. I'd also like to say that Mel Gibson did this a long time ago. Mel Gibson is famous for pulling these kind of pranks. I think he actually gave Julia Roberts put a dead rat in her trailer at one point or something along those lines. So it's either this isn't, you know, weird enough for the Joker, or Mel Gibson is as weird as the Joker. You can go either way on that, depending on where your allegiances lie. And then the newest thing is that there's a psychiatrist on the set for Suicide Squad because David Ayer wants it to be so real, and he wants his actors to go to such a dark place. He wants to leave a light on or for them to come back. It's like Poltergeist, like throw the rope through. will follow the rope through. But then as the story develops, it's like, well, it's not actually a psychiatrist. It's David Ayer's friend who's a life coach. And I'd be like, that, you know, I hope that's not like the attention to detail that David Ayer is doing for the movie itself, right? It's like, if you're going to provide a psychiatrist, go get a psychiatrist. I'm sure there are a ton of psychiatrists who would love to say, I was the on-set psychiatrist for Suicide Squad, right? Certainly some mall psychiatrists at the very least, because I don't know how professional it is to do this. I think this is just trying to add to the mystique. And I also think it's in somewhat bad taste sometimes, because for instance, I think a lot of us didn't like when Jack Nicholson was like, oh, playing the Joker drove Heath Ledger to overdose and that's what killed him. And, you know, you go to dark places. And it's like, Heath Ledger was a professional. He's able to compartmentalize. And, you know, it really speaks to the dangers of prescription drugs and also, I think, celebrity doctors, right? Who, you know, maybe give their celebrity patients, you know, I was going to say client, and I think that's probably a better term because they don't really to give the medical expertise they're supposed to. Same thing happened to Michael Jackson. You know, they give them the drugs that the person wants because they want to stay their doctor, right? That's what I think was largely what happened to Heath Ledger, not you know, that it was too dark to play the Joker. But anyway, it is a nice story, and I think it does add to the mystique of the film, right? I think Suicide Squad is developing into an extremely strong contender. I think that we'll see, it's walking a very fine line as a movie, because it needs to have, like, the street cred of being, like, this insane villains film, especially in the wake of Heath Ledger's phenomenal and tragic performance as the Joker. Even though I do not believe played into his death, I think his death still colors the work that he did, especially since everyone watched him do it posthumously. And I just think that takes on like and also a mythological aspect to it. So anyway, I understand that the movie has a very high bar to not only meet, but hopefully, you know, surpass. But at the same time, if it gets too weird, it's going to block out its mainstream audience appeal. So I hope that David Ayer, you know what, let David Ayer do what David Ayer needs to do. I hope there is a very strong-willed studio executive from Warner Brothers on this who is like, yes, saying yes and no to David Ayer, or maybe with this change, you know, and just is helping guide this film. We'll talk about George Miller. Actually, let's just talk about George Miller next, because this plays into this discussion. This is an organic transition to story number 2. I got a lot of people asking me to talk about the Furiosa comic, which I actually recommended that you pick up. And boy, are we all sorry we did that, right? And I had a number of BTT viewers say, could you talk about the fact that it kind of sucks? Well, I said in a viewer comment discussion, I'd say maybe a few weeks ago, that I felt that George Miller was let down by Warner Brothers, because David Ayer did what he was supposed, well, let's hope that David Ayer has a different outcome than George Miller. Although, I mean, it's tough. You know, I really love Mad Max Furious Road. It's my Fury Road. It's my favorite movie of the year so far to date. I think it's absolutely spectacular. But from a business perspective, the thing just did not get off the ground. And I said that George Miller did what he was supposed to by delivering a fantastic film. And you know, George Miller, it would be nice if he was business savvy, but that's not what his job is, right? That's Warner Brothers' job. So what I think Warner Brothers needed to do was to make sure that they guided him in the proper direction so that his artistry could still make it to the big screen, but in a way that would allow the film to flourish, get a sequel, and get the recognition it deserves. I mean, look at the recognition Jurassic World is getting, right? I mean, it's breaking all these box office records. It's one of the biggest hits of all time. No one's even talking about Mad Max Fury Road anymore, except for us, because we love the movie. But it's just disappeared from the pop culture radar, and it doesn't deserve to, right? It's not going to be remembered the way it should, because it was off-putting to a lot of mainstream moviegoers, unfortunately. I mean, it made money. It's like somewhere around $350 million, but the film's so incredibly expensive that it needs to make like $400 million just to break even, because you have to factor in its advertising campaign costs. And, you know, remember, Hollywood fudges its numbers. So they're floating the 150 as the budget, but that's not true, because you have to add the publicity numbers to that as well in terms of what Warner Brothers spent on it, right? So it's really unfortunate, and like if they had made the same movie but have insisted that he bring the budget down and find a way to make it work, then the movie would be considered a really big success, and the narrative would change, and everybody would be looking at Mad Max through a different, more flattering lens. So that's Warner Brothers' responsibility, and I hope that they're not making the same mistake with David Ayer and just this idea of auteur filmmaking in general that's really become the mantra for the studio, right? They said that. They were like, Kevin Feige rules his MCU with like an iron fist, and he upsets directors and gives them a nervous breakdown, and they quit or they badmouth him, but we let we trust our talent to make the opuses that we know they can with these iconic characters. And you're like, this is it. You're like, but if they make things that are not commercially viable, your whole thing's gonna, sink, because this is a business, it's an artistic business. So, but in terms of like fine art, you just need one person to buy your painting for millions of dollars, but this is mass-produced art, so you need a lot of people to pay, I guess I think the average ticket price is like $8 these days. So, I mean, just look at it. 3D has allowed Jurassic World to beat out Inside Out, right? That's like, they're so close in terms of their box office numbers, and all boiled down to 3D. And the fact that people are seeing Jurassic World in 3D, but not Inside Out. That's what's the deciding factor. Not, is the movie good? Not what studio did it come from? Not who's in it. It's, what do you want? Do you want to pay the 3D surcharge? So it's really fascinating, but all these things need to come into play, and I think the yin and the yang need to be the filmmaker and the studio. And studios just shouldn't take such a back seat because it's irresponsible, not only to the investors and the company, but the filmmaker as well, because you're letting that filmmaker down. All right, so the third story of the day is something that Warner Brothers did, which I think is really smart. And this really surprised a lot of people yesterday, including myself. I was like, what? That's an amazing move. So what they did was they spun off all their films in development from Vertigo to New Line Cinema. They were like, we're just going to focus on making Justice League-based titles here at Warner Brothers, and we're going to make all of our smaller comic book movies over at New Line. It really is recreating the old DC-Vertigo relationship from the comics back in the day when Vertigo was the image of the comics world, right? Vertigo, I mean, it's ironic because Warner Brothers killed Vertigo basically because they were like, what? We don't own the rights to these comics? That's ridiculous. These are horrible deals that we're signing. So nobody wanted to go to Vertigo with the new deal because they were like, I don't want to sign away all the rights to my characters that I've created here because it's a creator-based imprint. I'm going to go to Image where I can maintain my creator rights. So Image has become the new Vertigo, but that's what Vertigo's reputation used to be, right? They opened up a space that Image gladly filled. So that's fascinating right there. So I think it's wonderful to see this distinction being made in the movies, and I think it's good. Don't distract the DC team at Warner Brothers with films like Sandman, etc. Let's go set up a powerhouse creative team at New Line that, is best suited to those type of projects, just like, the editorial staff at Vertigo had a really good mindset for those kind of more indie titles. So it's very exciting for the movies, and we can only hope that Warner Brothers would maybe reestablish the Vertigo imprint as well to feed the New Line deal, right? You want more of these kind of movies? Make Vertigo a place that creators want to go again. Give them a better, not all the rights, but a sweeter rights deal and like a guaranteed movie deal, right? Like if you go to Image, you have to hope that someone will make a movie deal with you, right? Well, why don't we reinvent Vertigo as something that's creator-based, but the movie executives are involved in greenlighting which comics to publish, right? And therefore you have a guaranteed movie deal or a TV deal if they go with you. So I think that's a really smart idea, and that's what I would actually do. All right, so, and I had a funny thing here I wanted to say. Maybe, just maybe, movies aren't the natural enemy of comics after all. That would be a really funny development. And also, as you might recall, Hollywood Reporter is doing a big coverage of this week. DC Comics has finally moved to Burbank to be on the Warner Brothers lot, so all of DC Entertainment now is under one roof. And if it results in good moves like this, I think that could end up being a real game changer, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is successful if Marvel Comics also ends up, although I don't know if Feige would want them there, right? Feige doesn't really want any input from the comic book people because he's like, I'm that person, I'm the one who I'm the decision maker. All right, so on to the viewer question from T-Man Christian, aka Tawny. So Tawny says, hi Grace, I'm planning to shoot a short film this weekend, and I was wondering when production actually starts and I'm on set, what exactly should I be doing? I'm the writer-director. Really hope you answer my question before Saturday. Okay, now I know that a number of you are also aspiring or currently filmmakers, so I would really like for you to also chime in down below what advice you have for Tawny, as I think I think T-Man Christian, I'm not sure if Tawny's a boy or a girl, but so we'll just say Tawny. But for Tawny, I'm directing his or her first short film. So I think very exciting stuff. So this is my advice to you, Tawny, okay? As the writer-director, all right, well, you know, the writer, that job for you has fallen away, unless for some reason you need to do a rewrite when you're on set. Right now, you're just the director, okay? And I hope that you have a very strong producer. We just talked about the studio being important as for guiding the filmmaker from a business perspective. Well, that's also the producer-director relationship. So whoever your producer is needs to make sure that your film is staying on schedule, you know, things that shouldn't be distracting you from your creative process, right? Are you on schedule? Is everyone showing up on time? Is the crew being fed? Do you have all your permits? You know, are you getting the scenes shot in a timely manner, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope that you have someone who's fulfilling that role for you, and if not, that falls on you. But anyway, as the director, your job is to make sure that your vision is being appropriately realized, and that everyone is, so you're not only, but don't just get so concerned with like the auteurness of your work, right? I mean, you should have done your prep work. You should have your storyboards for all the different shots that you want. You should have all your notes. You should have been working with your actors. So you should be pretty set on what you want to see happen. Now, different filmmakers work in different ways. Alfred Hitchcock, for instance, would have everything storyboarded meticulously, and he just had to execute when he got on set. That's actually the way I like to filmmake as well. But for some people, they're a little bit more freestyle. That's how you hear, you know, people doing hundreds and hundreds of takes and finding the shot when they get there. Although sometimes inspiration does strike when you get to a location and you get like a really cool idea. But then your producer is supposed to be making sure that in implementing and coming up with that cool idea and implementing it, you don't fall off schedule and can't complete your film in the allotted time and within the allotted budget. So now you're starting to also probably get an idea of how films get over budget. So anyway, you should be pretty set from a creative standpoint, but your job is to make sure that your vision is being executed properly, but also you're a team leader, and I think it's really important that you respect the other people who are contributing to your film, not just the actors, but the DP in particular, the director of photography. That is like your right-hand man or woman. You need to really respect your sound department. Sound is crucial. Sound doesn't get a lot of love, but you got to pay attention to them. I don't know how big your set is, but this is just in general. So if you have a production designer, a costume designer, makeup, you need to be making sure that you're overseeing all of this and that everyone is marching to your beat, right? And so you not only want to make sure they're realizing your vision, but you want to encourage them to put in their 2 cents. Filmmaking is a team business. It's a team art form. So you're like, well, this is how I see it. What do you think would be good? Or you know what? But again, this should mostly be done before you get on set, right? If you have a makeup team, like for instance, when I did the recent top 5 horror films of 2015 on that really cool legendary set that Guillermo del Toro built for YouTube, I sat down with my makeup artist because we had a lot of special effects makeup art, and I was like, okay, well, this is the kind of look I'm going for. I would like to see this kind of cut. This is in particular what I have in mind. What do you think? My makeup artist, really professional, drew out, sample pictures beforehand. You know, she showed me what she would like to do, what she could do. She showed me some samples. So we really had a pretty good idea of what we were going to do going in. And you know, I got progressively sick during the film, the short video. So we had the different stages planned out when they would kick in. Also, like we had decided where on the set we would already be shooting. Because a lot of things can go wrong when you're actually shooting, so you need to be as planned out as possible. So I'm glad I'm answering this question for you on Tuesday, so you have these extra days, Tawny, to make sure that you are in position and you are as prepared as you possibly can be when Saturday comes around. And then again, you're just executing, making sure that you're also being alert for any new opportunities or ideas that spring forward, staying on track, and working with your team all towards the same goal. So I hope that's helpful. Good luck with you, or break a leg on your shoot, Tawny, and please come back and tell us how it turned out. All right, thank you everybody for tuning in. That's today's episode. Please let me know what you think of today's top 3 stories and the viewer question. Anything you'd like us to cover tomorrow, any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.